Hello everyone. It has been more than 6 months since I uploaded my last video. I couldn't do it as I was a little bit busy, due to which I am going to now continue this video series. I had previously made two videos about the IGBC-AP exam. The first video was an introduction about the IGBC-AP exam, and the second video was a part introduction about the IGBC rating system. The links to these videos will be given in the description box for your reference. So kindly go through them. Now in this video I am going to continue talking about the IGBC rating system, and I am also going to talk about the various processes involved while applying for a IGBC project. So let us get started. Now let us look at the features involved in the IGBC rating system. So the IGBC rating system is actually a voluntary and a consensus based program. Consensus here refers to something which is agreed upon by everyone. So the rating system has been developed based on the materials and technologies which are available in the market. So the objective of this rating system is to facilitate a holistic or an overall approach in order to create environmental friendly buildings through the architectural design, the water efficiency, the effective waste handling, energy efficiency, and lastly focus on the occupant comfort and well-being. So the rating system actually evaluates certain mandatory requirements and credit points by using a prescriptive approach, while others are done on a performance-based approach. So the prescriptive approach refers to the use of building codes in order to show compliance with the building performance. So for this actually I would be giving two examples. The first example is that while designing the skylights, the U factor and the SHGC requirement should comply with the ECBC requirements. So the U factor refers to the heat transfer between the outer environment and the inner environment, while SHGC refers to the solar heat gain coefficient, which is about the incoming solar radiation or the sunlight entering through the skylights, and the ECBC refers to the energy conservation building code. Now the second example is that while designing the outer light system of the project, in order to show compliance with the light pollution requirements, it should be done as per the ASHRAE's 90.1 of 2010 guidelines. ASHRAE refers to the American Society of Heating, Refrigeration and Air Conditioning Engineers. So the performance approach refers to the use of building modeling softwares in order to show compliance. Now, for an example of this would be while calculating the energy efficiency requirements by using the whole building simulation approach. So the simulation would be carried out at a temperature of 24 plus or minus 2 degrees, which would be anywhere between 22 degrees and 26 degrees Celsius. So this rating system is actually designed to be comprehensive and user friendly. So the program is actually designed to address the national priorities which I had spoken about in the previous video, and also improve the quality of life of the building occupants. So there are 8 aspects in this rating system. So the first aspect is about the recognition for architectural excellence through the integrated design approach. So the integrated design approach refers to the collaboration of the various project team members in order to develop a high performance building. The second aspect is about the recognition for the passive architectural features. So this can actually be done by the passive heating or passive cooling techniques. Then comes the third aspect, which is about the structural design optimization with respect to steel and cement. So steel and cement are actually the two most commonly used building materials. So steel is actually considered to be sustainable as it can be recycled, but at the same time it also contributes a lot towards the carbon emissions. So similarly, in the case of cement, its manufacturing process involves a lot of carbon emissions. So the structural design optimization with respect to steel can be done by modifying either the shape or the size of the structural members. So based on the shape or the size of the structural members, the quantity of cement can be determined. So this is actually a developmental credit, and projects they are actually encouraged to attempt this credit in order to help IGBC for developing baselines for the future. Then comes the fourth aspect, which is about the water use reduction for construction. So this can actually be done by treating recycled water and also using curing compounds. So this is actually a developmental credit. Then comes the fifth aspect, which is about the use of certified green products, which will be encouraged by IGBC. So for this, actually, the IGBC has launched an initiative which is called the Green Pro Initiative or the Green Product Initiative, in order to certify green products to transform the markets. So the products would actually be evaluated right from the extraction to the disposal or the cradle to the grave technique. So the Green Pro is actually a directory which shows the availability of the various green products along with their manufacturers. Then comes the sixth aspect, which is about the handholding and support received from the IGBC counselors throughout the project. Then comes the seventh aspect, which is about site visit and an audit which is proposed before the award of the rating. So a site visit is actually done by the IGBC team, and the audit is done through the form of commissioning to see that the various design features are implemented. And this is actually done during the certification stage, which I will be talking about further. Then comes the last aspect, which is about reporting energy and water consumption on a yearly basis. So for this, projects they are actually encouraged to do so, as this would help in facilitating more research in understanding the how to save water and energy. Then comes the next topic, which is about the scope of the rating system. So this rating system is primarily designed for new buildings, that is for both air-conditioned buildings and non-air-conditioned buildings. So new buildings actually refers to buildings which are in their construction phase or yet to be constructed. So the examples of various new buildings are offices, IT parks, banks, libraries, museums, and so on. So building types such as residential buildings, factory buildings, schools, and integrated townships will be covered under other IGBC rating programs. Now, for example, for one wants to refer the construct a residential building, they would have to refer to the IGBC green homes, and during the construction of any integrated township, they would have to refer to the IGBC green townships. So based on the occupancy, actually IGBC, this rating system has actually classified buildings into two types, which are the owner occupied buildings and tenant occupied buildings. So owner occupied buildings are those buildings in which 51% or more of the buildings built up area is actually occupied by the owner. So the built up area actually refers to the sum of the carpet area, the thickness of the walls, the area of the balcony, and the area of the terrace. Then comes the tenant occupied buildings. These are actually those buildings in which 51% or more of the buildings built up area is occupied by the tenants. So based on the scope of the work, the projects they can either register themselves as owner occupied buildings or a tenant occupied buildings. Then comes the next topic, which is about the future of the IGBC green new building rating system. So many new green building materials, equipments, and technologies have been introduced into the market. So with continuous upgradation and introduction of these materials and technologies, it is important that the rating program would also keep pace with the current standards and technologies. So this rating program would actually undergo various revisions in order to incorporate the latest advancements. So it is important to note that the project teams which are applying for this rating system, they should register their projects with the latest version of the rating system. And then during the course of the implementation, the projects have an option to change over to the latest version of the rating system. So whatever changes would be occurring, they would actually be highlighted and shown on IGBC's website. Then comes the next topic, which is about the overview and process. So before starting this topic, I would like to tell you all that questions from this particular section would be asked in the third section of the IGBC exam, that is the IGBC processes, and there are actually 15 questions in this particular section. So the IGBC rating system it addresses the green features in 7 categories, which are sustainable architecture and design, the site selection and planning, water conservation, energy efficiency, building materials and resources, indoor environmental quality, and lastly comes innovation and development. So the guidelines which are detailed under each mandatory requirement and the credit, it enables the design and the construction of the new buildings of all the sizes and types, which is mentioned in the scope. That is the types of the various types of the buildings are the hotels, IT parks, universities, and so on. So the different levels of green building certifications would be awarded based on the total credits earned. See, for example, if a building would be if a score anywhere between 40 and 49 points, it would be a IGBC certified rated building. So, however, for every one should remember that every green building should meet the mandatory requirements, and these are non-negotiable. So the various levels of the rating are shown in this box. So there are actually, as I said, there are actually 4 types, which are the IGBC certified rated buildings, IGBC silver rated buildings, IGBC gold rated buildings, and IGBC platinum rated buildings. Then comes the next topic, which is about when to use the IGBC green new building rating system. So this rating system is actually designed primarily for new buildings, that is for both owner occupied buildings and tenant occupied buildings. The definition of new buildings was already covered previously, and I'm telling it once again. So it is actually for buildings which are in the construction phase or yet to be constructed. So the project team, they can actually evaluate all the possible points under this rating system by using the checklist, and I'll be showing you this checklist at the end. So this is actually for both owner occupied buildings and tenant occupied buildings. So the project, they can actually apply for the IGBC green new building rating system, that is provided the project meets all the mandatory requirements and they achieve the minimum required points. Then comes the next topic, which is about the registration. So, organizations which are interested in registering their projects under this particular rating system, they are advised to first register on the IGBC's website under the IGBC Green New Building Rating System tab. So, this website would actually give information about the registration fee for the both the IGBC members and the non-members. So after the project team, they actually do the registration, they would have access to the required documents, the templates, the important communication, and they would also be getting the viewing necessary information. So this website is actually gives all the important details about this rating system, the registration and the certification, which includes the process, schedule, and the fee. Then comes the certification. So in order to achieve this rating system, the projects must satisfy all the mandatory requirements and also the minimum number of credit points. So this project team is actually expected to provide the supporting documents for both the preliminary stage and the final stage of the submission. And this has to be submitted for all the mandatory requirements and the credits which are attempted. For the project, they actually need to submit the following documents. First one is about the general information about the project, which includes the project brief having the project type, the different types of spaces, the occupancy, the number of floors, the area statement, and so on. So the project brief actually it refers to a document which is submitted to the client about the various details like the site information, the technical requirements, and so on. Then the project type actually refers to the type of building, be it a hotel, IT park, university, etc. Then the different types of spaces which would actually vary depending upon the type of project. Now, for example, in the case of a shopping mall, it would be something like an atrium and others. Then the occupancy refers to the project being registered as either an owner occupied building or a tenant occupied building. Then the number of floors present in that particular project. Then the area statement is something which gives us details about the built up area, the ground coverage, and so on. So an example of this would be in the case of a mall, the area statement would have details about the area occupied by the stores, the area for the storage of equipments, and so on. Then comes the general drawings which are to be submitted only in the PDF format. So this includes the master or the site plan, then the parking plans, the floor plans, the elevations, and the sections. The master plan or the site plan, it gives us a bird's eye view or an overall view of the project and its the space distribution and so on. Then an example of this would be in the case of a university, the master plan or the site plan would include details of the buildings which are meant for the various departments, the laboratories, the canteen, sports ground, hostels, and so on. Then comes the parking plans. This actually gives us details about the parking space available and the number of vehicles which would be accommodated in that particular space. Then comes the floor plans. This actually gives us a top view of the distribution of space within the floor. For example, the floor plan of a mall would include the anchor stores, the kiosks, then the location of the elevators, the staircases, and so on. Then the elevation actually gives us a front view of the building, like the entrance, the building envelope, and so on. I'm sorry for that. And lastly comes the sections, which actually gives us a detailed view of the particular portion of a building when it is cut. Then comes the photographs and the rendered images. Photographs would be of that particular project, and rendered images, they would be actually generated through the BIM or the building information modeling software. Then comes the filled-in templates, and then the narratives and the supporting documents, which includes the drawings, which could be the architectural or the structural drawings, the calculations which are to be submitted in Excel sheets. This would be about the quantity of mostly about the quantity of the particular material and so on. Then the declarations, then the contact documents, the purchase invoices, the manufacturer cut sheets, the letters, the material test reports for each mandatory requirement and the creditor. So the purchase invoices would actually be about the purchase of the various green materials. Then the manufacturer cut sheets would actually be referring to the data sheets which actually mention the specifications of the product. Now, for example, while buying paints and adhesives, it would include would be mentioned as a low VOC product. Then material test reports, they are actually to be submitted in order to ensure that the materials, they actually comply with the various standards. Now, for example, the wood items like the workstations, the chairs or the tables, they should actually comply with the indoor air concentrations. So this test would actually be done by the manufacturer at the manufacturing unit, or it would be done by a third party. So from these documents, we come to know that there is a lot of paperwork. So the next, then comes the project documentation. This is actually submitted in two phases, which are the preliminary submittal and the final submittal. So the preliminary phase involves the submission of all the documents, which includes all the mandatory requirements and the minimum number of credits. So after the preliminary submission, the review would be done by a third-party assessor appointed by the IGBC, and they would actually be giving their reviews within 30 days. Then comes the next phase, which is about the submission of clarifications to the preliminary review queries, and then comes the final submitted where all the final documents are submitted. So this review would actually be provided within 30 days, after which this rating is awarded. So one should remember that the mandatory requirements and the credits which are earned at the preliminary reviews, they are only considered as expected. So these mandatory requirements and credits, they are not awarded until the final documents are submitted, along with the documents which show the implementation of the various design features. So if ever there are any changes in any expected credits after the preliminary review, these changes need to be documented and resubmitted during the final review. So the threshold criteria for this certification is given here. As I had already mentioned, the 4 types of the certified levels. They are certified silver, gold, and platinum. So based on the type of points received, it would actually vary. And this is actually the same for both owner-occupied buildings and tenant-occupied buildings. So if a project would score anywhere between 40 and 49 points, it would be an IGBC certified rated building. If it would score anywhere between 50 and 59 points, it would be a silver rated building. If it would score anywhere between 60 and 74 points, it would be a gold rated building. And lastly, if it would score anywhere between 75 and 100 points, it would be a platinum rated building. So the IGBC, they would actually be recognizing these buildings by giving a formal letter of certification and a mountable plaque. Here is actually the flowchart of this certification process. So first, the project, they need to register themselves on the IGBC's website. Then afterwards, they need to submit the preliminary documentation, which would be reviewed by the IGBC third-party assessors, and their reviews would actually be known within 30 days. Then comes the submission of the final documentation by the project team. Then comes the site visit by the IGBC, followed by the final review and the award of the rating. And then comes the acceptance of the rating by that particular project. So during this particular stage, that is this acceptance, the team, they can actually accept the rating or they can reject it. So if ever they would accept it, the IGBC will be presenting a plaque and a certificate, which includes a certification level like an IGBC certified rated building or a gold rated building, and so on. And in case they do not accept the rating, that would actually be because of issues where they wouldn't have received points for that particular mandatory requirement or the credit, or if ever they feel that they would be deserving a better rating system, this project team, they can actually appeal within 30 days of the announcement of the results. So this entire process would actually take anywhere between 2 and 3 months. So then comes the next topic, which is about the pre-certification. So this is actually for tenant-occupied buildings, and they can register for these pre-certification stage. And this is actually for projects which are who are aspiring to be pre-certified right at the design stage itself. So the design stage is actually the second stage of the project life cycle. Then the pre-certification, this also gives developers a unique advantage in order to market their projects to potential buyers. So this documentation submitted for the pre-certification, it must include all the design features which would be implemented, and this rating awarded under the pre-certification, this is based on the project's intention in order to agree to the requirements or conform to the requirements of the IGBC Green New Building Rating System. So it is also important to note that the pre-certification rating which is awarded, it did not necessarily respond to the final rating. Now, for example, during the pre-certification stage, a project would be awarded a gold rated building, but during the final rating system, they would actually be awarded a silver rated building. So the pre-certified projects, they are actually required to provide the status to the IGBC once in every 6 months till the award of the final rating. So these projects, they have to submit the documentation. This is almost same like the documents which are submitted in the certification stage. This includes the general information about the project brief, the general drawings, the photographs, the filled in templates, then the narratives and supporting documents such as the conceptual drawings. then the estimate or the tentative calculations to be done in Excel sheets, then the declarations from the owners for each monetary requirement and the credit. So IGBC would take about 30 days to review the first set of the pre-certificate documents. So after, on receiving the certification post in the first review, the IGBC would take another 30 days in order to award the pre-certification. So after this, the certificate and a letter would be provided to the projects for on the pre-certification. Then comes the flowchart of the pre-certification process. So first, the projects, they need to register themselves on IGBC's website, and the project team, they actually submit the preliminary documentation for this reviewed by the IGBC third-party assessors. Then comes the submission of the final documents by the project team, and then comes the final review and the award of rating. This is the only step, the difference between the certification stage and the pre-certification stage. In the certification stage, after the final documents would be submitted, the site visit and the audit would be done. But in this case, after the submission, the final review and the award of the rating is done. Then comes the acceptance of the rating of the project. So in case the project accepts the rating, there will be presented certificates which includes the certification level like the IGBC platinum rated building or gold rated building, and this is actually valid for 3 years. So in case the project team, they feel that they have not been given points for a particular mandatory credit or a mandatory requirement or a credit, or if they feel that they deserve a better certification level, they can actually appeal within 30 days of announcement of the results. So this pre-certification is actually valid for 3 years from the date of the award, after which these projects, they are required to apply for the full certification or submit the construction progress reports once in every 6 months in order to get an extension for the pre-certification rating. Now it should be noted that projects which are owner occupied buildings, which who are applying for the MOEF, I'm sorry for that. The MOEF refers to the Ministry of Environment and Forest. This is actually renamed as the MOEF-CC, which is the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. So when they apply for this clearance, they can apply for the provisional certification. So the provisional certification process is same as that of the pre-certification process. Then comes the next topic, which is about the credit interpretation ruling or CIR. So this is in case some instances there is a possibility that the design team, they actually face challenges or difficulties in applying that particular mandatory requirement of credit or to the project, or understanding a mandatory requirement or a credit. It also happens in cases where the project, they can actually achieve the same intent through a different compliance route which is not mentioned in the rating system. So in order to address this process, the IGBC has introduced the CIR, which ensures that the interpretations are uniform or consistent throughout, and they are applicable to the other projects as well. So in case the design team actually they face any difficulties, there are 4 steps to be followed. So the first step is actually referring to the abridged reference guide for the description of the credit intent and the compliance options. That will be referring to this guide. And the second step is about reviewing the intent of that mandatory requirement and the credit, and the project team, they should self-evaluate to understand whether this project, they actually satisfy the intent or not. Then comes the third step, which is about reviewing the CIR web page for the previous CIRs on the relevant mandatory requirements or the credit. So only projects that are registered on IGBC, they will have access to this particular page. Then comes the last step, which is says that if a particular CIR has not been addressed, or it has only been addressed partially or not been answered sufficiently, the project team, they can actually submit a credit interpretation request. So only registered projects would be able to submit the CIR. So for they can only submit two CIRs without paying any fee, and for every third CIR, they would have to pay a fee for getting the answer to that CIR. So this is something like reading articles on an online paper or a magazine. We would actually be able to read only 2 or 3 articles without free, and then we could be able to read it free, and then for every 4th article, we would have to subscribe to their website by paying a fee. Then comes the next topic, which is about the appeal. So this is actually something what we have gone through while when we are giving our exams. Be it our class 10 board exams, our class 12 board exams, or our final exams. So we would have actually prepared well for a particular subject for our exams, and then finally when the results will be out, we would be either we would be shocked to see know the results for that particular subject where we would have prepared well, and we would have actually scored less or in that particular subject, and then if we feel that we would deserve more marks in that particular subject, we would be applying for a reevaluation. We would be paying a fee for that particular subject. So in such cases, in rare cases, actually the mandatory requirements of the credits, they get denied due to the misinterpretation of the intent. So on receipt of the final review, and if the project team they feel that they have the sufficient grounds to appeal for a credit denied in the final review, they can actually appeal to the IGBC for the reassessment of that particular mandatory credit requirement or the credit. So the documentation of those mandatory requirements and the credits seeking appeal, they have to be submitted to the IGBC by paying that necessary fees. So the IGBC would take 30 days in order to review such documentation. So if ever any such appeal is pursued, one should remember that a different review team would be assessing the appeal documentation, and not the same review team which would have which was available during the pre-certification stage or the certification stage. I'm sorry. Then the documentation to be submitted are the general information, which includes the project brief, the general drawings, the photos, and the filled in templates for that particular mandatory requirement of the credit. Then the resubmittal and the appeal submittal documentation for only those mandatory requirements or the credits, and that particular project is appealing for. Should also include a narrative for each appeal mandatory requirement or the credit in order to describe how the documents address the reviewers' comments and the concerns. Then comes the fees. So for the registration, the pre-certification or the provisional certificate, the certifications and the other CIR details, they are all available on IGBC's website. Then comes the last topic, which is about updates and addenda. So as this rating system continues to improve and evolve, updates, addenda and addenda are to the abridged reference rate would be made through the IGBC's website. So these additions would actually be incorporated in the next version of the rating system. Then comes the IGBC green new building checklist. This actually shows the number of credits and the points received, and this also the points received for the owner occupied buildings and tenant occupied buildings. So it also gives us details about the mandatory requirements to be followed. So for example, during site selection and planning, the local building regulations and the soil erosion control are mandatory, and without giving the documentation for these two, the project wouldn't be receiving their rating. And then one should also remember that the points for the owner-occupied buildings and the tenant-occupied buildings would vary. Now, for example, in the case of water conservation, the owner-occupied buildings would be allotted 18 points, and in the case of tenant-occupied buildings, they would be allotted 19 points. That is actually because of WC Credit 6, which is about water metering, and this says that owner-occupied buildings would be given 1 point, and tenant-occupied buildings would be given 2 points. Then comes an remaining modules, which is about energy efficiency, the building materials and resources, the indoor environmental quality, innovation and development, and then the threshold criteria, which I had already explained about. So that's all for now. If anyone has any doubts, please let me know in the comment section. Thank you.